Letter to Gorbachev is the sixth episode of the third season of The Golden Girls. This is directed by Terry Hughes, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And on paper, when I read the brief description of this, I wasn't really sure if I'd enjoy it. It didn't sound very good. And to be honest, the first half was kind of slow, but eventually I thought it ended up being pretty decent. So as I said, there will be spoilers from now. And it starts off with Sophia practicing magic for a performance, and she ends up smashing Dorothy's watch. And then Rose comes in, upset. They ask her what's wrong, and she says, "I'm concerned about nuclear war." And it turns out that some of the Sunshine Cadets are worried about this. One of them did a drawing that has really upset Rose, and she wants to do something about this. And she decides to write a letter to the Soviet Premier, Gorbachev, and also to Ronald Reagan. And then Sophia practices ventriloquism with her sock. It definitely goes from really serious topics to light-hearted comedy, mostly with Sophia. And honestly, I think it got the balance between the two spot on. There were definitely some really moving moments, though. The Sunshine Cadets then end up camping out indoors with Rose and Dorothy and Blanche. And Rose goes to get pizza with the girls. And that's when somebody from the Russian embassy turns up, because Gorbachev received the letter, really liked it and wanted to meet Rose. But Rose is not there, so they will arrange it later. And when Rose finds out about this, she has a dream that she's in Moscow. Honestly, I found that scene to be kind of boring. I didn't really care for it. To be honest, in general, I don't think dream sequences are that interesting in any sitcom. This one I didn't really care for, but I did like the fact that it also involved Dorothy, Blanche, and Sophia. It was a nice way to include all of them, but in general, I didn't really care for it. Sophia then sings a song, Thanks for the Medicare, which to be fair was quite delightful. Again, nice, light-hearted before we get in with more serious topics. And it's time for the press conference, because Rose wrote this letter and the Soviet Premier liked it, and she's giving a press conference. And everybody arrives. Rose has brought the Sunshine Cadets to watch, and the person from the Russian embassy comes over and asks where little Rose Nylund is, because they're ready for the press conference. And it turns out they thought that Rose was 9 or 10 years old, which is a bit harsh. I feel like we do hear the letter, I'll talk about that in a moment, and I feel like it is written a little bit more eloquently than what I'd imagine an average 9 or 10-year-old would write. I'd also like to think her handwriting is a bit better than an average 9 or 10-year-old's, but we didn't get to see the handwriting, so that's just me speculating. But nevertheless, this is what they believe, and for a split second, they pick a Sunshine Cadet at random to pretend to be Rose, but at the last second, Rose admits the truth, and everybody at the press conference just scarpers, and that's the end of that. We're then in the kitchen, and Blanche and Dorothy are supporting Rose, helping her feel better, and Blanche reads out Rose's letter. And honestly, it's very brief and to the point, but it's very well written, it's very clear, and there's one bit that I think was the most moving part, and it's when Rose is talking about the girls at the Sunshine Cadets and how they talk about what they want to be if they grow up, rather than when they grow up. And no child should live in a world where they don't expect to grow up. Yes, childhood illnesses and accidents happen, but for the most part, it should not be debatable whether they are likely to grow up or not. And unfortunately, that's the reality of the situation, and it was pretty heavy going. And then Rose gets a phone call from the president, and she excitedly, after about a 10-second phone call, rushes up to write about it in her diary, which is adorable. And then Sophia comes in. Dorothy and Blanche are still in the room, and Sophia says, "I know what I'm doing for the talent contest. My Ronald Reagan impression." And of course, we can establish from that it wasn't a phone call from the president. It was Sophia. And that's how we end things. So it's not my favourite episode. It's not the funniest, but I think it addresses an important topic. I thought Rose was adorable. I loved seeing Dorothy and Blanche supporting her and being there for her. And anything that raises awareness about potentially serious issues is always going to be a good thing. So, may not be my all time favourite episode, but it's still a pretty decent episode of The Golden Girls.